we will play out our Virtue of Persistence, we will take out this vampire, we will attack in for a huge amount of wolfy deliciousness. Intro. Hey friends, welcome to Poor Mana's Magic, a place where the wild cards never rain on our parade. Today, we are taking a look at a deck that I like to call the Forest of Terrors. Now, this is a very flavorful deck, built around Ruby Daring Tracker, the Little Red Riding Hood of the Wilds of Eldraine set. Ruby is a 1 red, 1 green legendary human scout with haste that says whenever Ruby attacks while you control a creature with power 4 or greater, Ruby gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and Ruby can also tap to add either a red or a green mana. Now, as soon as this card came out, I immediately thought of another 2 mana card, Kessig Naturalist, that adds some red and some green mana. It only made sense then, given that Little Red Riding Hood had a wolf on the other side of that story to surround Ruby with her own pack. And she fits in really, really well, especially for the things that we're trying to ramp into. If we get a Kessig on board, if we get a Ruby on board, all of a sudden we're hitting turn 3-4 and we have 5-6 mana. We can start doing some pretty awesome things, like playing Gix's Command and clearing our opponent's board state, playing Tovolar's Huntmaster, pumping up our board with more wolves, taking some things out with Virtue of Persistence or Graveyard Trespasser, fighting with Fonsbane Troll. There are a lot of really fun build rounds here that also are a pretty cool way of upgrading one of the werewolf starter decks. So let's take this one by one and start in the 1 slot. We have 4 copies of Ascendant Packleader, a must-have 1 green creature in any of the werewolf decks. And Ascendant Packleader enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if you control a permanent with mana value 4 or greater, and whenever you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on Packleader. So this plays really, really well with our top-end cards, things like Arlinn, Fonsbane Troll, Tovolar's Huntmaster, Virtue of Persistence, and it is going to enable things like Tovolar. So we'd mentioned Kessig Naturalist, a 1 red, 1 green human werewolf that whenever Naturalist attacks, we get to add a red or a green mana, and until end of turn, we don't lose that. So Kessig Naturalist is a great way of, if it comes down on turn 2, playing a 3rd land on turn 3, attacking with Naturalist. Even if it dies, it'll ramp us, and we can play something like a Fonsbane Troll or Arlinn, the Back's Hope. We also have the back side of Kessig Naturalist, Lord of the Ulvenwald, a werewolf that says other wolves and werewolves we control get +1/+1. So this is going to be the night bound side. So when day turns to night, this is the card side that we will have. And this is going to be accomplished in a couple different ways. Either our opponent can play no cards, or we can have an Unnatural Moonrise in our hand. Unnatural Moonrise is a similarly costed sorcery that just says it becomes night, and until end of turn, a target creature that we control, or just a target creature in general, gets +1/+0, trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, we get to draw a card. It also has flashback, just so we can keep kind of recurring the night mechanic. In the 3 slot, we have 2 of the mainstays of the werewolf deck. We have Reckless Stormseeker, a human werewolf for 2 mana and 1 red, which at the beginning of combat on our turn is going to give a target creature we control +1/+0 and haste. In the back side, the night bound side, is a Storm Charged Slasher, a werewolf that says at the beginning of combat, it's going to give the same buff, but a +2 instead, and with trample. And it also has a bigger body at 3 power and 4 toughness. We have Tovolar, Dire Overlord, a 1 mana, 1 red, 1 green, legendary human werewolf. It says whenever a wolf or werewolf we control deals combat damage to a player, we get to draw a card. And at the beginning of our upkeep, if we control 3 or more wolves and or werewolves, it becomes night, and we transform any number of werewolves that we control. So this is where things like Ascendant Packleader really come in handy. We want to be able to play Packleader on 1, play a Naturalist on 2, play Tovolar on 3, turn 4, we flip all of our werewolves. They get the buff from Lord of the Ulvenwald. We play something else out like a Reckless Stormseeker or like a Tovolar Huntmaster or Arlinn, which we get to play the backside for, and we are attacking in with a great buff, and we'll be drawing a lot of cards if our creatures connect. We also have something that isn't often played in the werewolf decks, Graveyard Trespasser. Now this is a mainstay of all of the mono black decks right now, because it's really, really good. Graveyard Trespasser is a 2-mana, 1 black werewolf human with ward. Our opponent would need to discard a card if they want to target this creature. And it says whenever Graveyard Trespasser enters the battlefield or attacks, we exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled, each opponent loses a life, we gain a life. So there are a lot of graveyard shenanigans happening right now, a lot of different things being explored. Graveyard Trespasser is going to shut a lot of those down. If it becomes night and this Graveyard Trespasser transforms, it becomes the Graveyard Glutton with the same ward cost, but whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, we get to exile up to 2 target cards. So this is a great way of controlling our opponent's graveyard shenanigans. It's also a great way of putting a 4/4 body on the field for something like a Ruby, and it's a great way to have a little stickiness on our board, gain some life back, deal a little bit more damage. In the 4 slot, we have Arlinn the Pack's Hope, a legendary planeswalker for 2 mana, 1 red, 1 green, which has Daybound and Nightbound. Front side has a +1 ability that says until our next turn we can cast creature spells as though they had flash, and each creature that we control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. We can also -3 to create 2 2/2 green wolf creature tokens. However, if it is night, Arlinn flips. Arlinn transforms to become the Moon's Fury. When on the backside, we can +2 to add a green and a red mana, or we can activate it for 0 to, until end of turn, have Moon's Fury become a 5/5 werewolf creature with trample, indestructible, and haste. This is going to be a really great creature spell if we have Unnatural Moonrise on maybe turn 4, if we have flipped something with Tovolar. A great rollout here is Packleader into Naturalist, into Tovolar, into Arlinn, and all of a sudden we are attacking with almost or near lethal. We also have another kind of thing that goes bump in the night, a new card from Wilds of Eldraine called Fawn's Bane Troll, a 2-mana, 1 black, 1 green troll creature that when it enters, we get to create a monster roll token and attach it to this troll. Now, the monster roll is a new mechanic. It is an aura enchantment that says enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and trample. However, and this is most relevant for this deck, we can pay 1 mana, sacrifice an aura attached to Fawn's Bane Troll, and Fawn's Bane Troll fights a target creature we do not control. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. This is sorcery speed only, so we can't be playing an instant speed game, but still, it is a 4/4 body with a lot of upside, and the ability to remove an opposing creature. In the 5 slot, I considered quite a few cards, some creatures, something like Shieldred. However, I think Gix's Command, at least in my playtesting, has a better upside potential here. So Gix's Command is a 3-mana, 2 black sorcery that says choose 2 of the following. We can put 2 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 creature and it gains lifelink until end of turn. We can destroy each creature with power 2 or less. We can return up to 2 creature cards from our graveyard to our hand, or we can make each opponent sacrifice a creature they control with the highest power. So this is going to be a great way of either returning some of those early creatures that got murdered or killed or sacrificed. We can buff up some of our creatures if we need to, say, activate Ruby. We can take out some opposing creatures. Think about a mono red. Think about some of the token decks that are starting to come up through the play queues. There's a lot of flexibility in this card, and because we're playing black, we might as well play some sort of board sweep, just in case things go against us. And then lastly, we have one new card in the form of Virtue of Persistence, a 5-mana 2 black enchantment that says at the beginning of our upkeep, we can put a target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under control, but we'll mostly be playing this as a 2-slot removal on the adventure side. Lochthwain Scorn, a 1-mana, 1 black sorcery, which says target creature gets -3/-3, and we gain 2 life. This is a card that is seeing play in almost every mono black deck I've come up against, and that is because of the prevalence of aggro like mono red. When mono red is out and burning people's faces off, having something like this, where you can take down a 3 toughness creature and gain some life back, essentially 2-for-1ing a mono red deck, you are probably going to gain a severe advantage, and we might as well be playing this. In addition, and this is going to happen so very rarely, we can also play the 7-mana side just to start bringing back some of our threats, something like a Stormseeker, something like a Fontsbane Troll, but that is much less likely to happen. Most of our games are going to be done by turn 6, if they're going well, and if not, we have bigger problems to worry about. And then lastly is another mainstay of the werewolf decks, Tovolar's Huntmaster, a 6 mana human werewolf that whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to create 2 2/2 green wolf creature tokens. If it transforms because of its Nightbound, whenever it enters or attacks, we get to create 2 2/2 green wolf creature tokens, and we can pay 2 and 2 green mana and have another target wolf or werewolf we control fight a target creature we don't. So this could be maybe a 3 or 4 of, especially with all the ramp that we're playing. If it comes down, it has the ability to reestablish our attack. We have 3 creatures. If the opponent doesn't respond to them, that's a lot of damage swinging through. It's 10 damage total. So a very important card to have, especially against board wipes. In terms of the mana base, we have a lot of the dual lands, because again, it is a 3 mana, a 3 kinds of mana deck. It is a little bit complicated to do the math and figure out exactly what you need to be casting if you don't have all of these dual lands. But if you want to go for a cheaper version of this, you can still play cool cards like Ruby. You can still play things like Fontsbane Troll. I think you would just need to remove the Virtue of Persistence, remove the Graveyard Trespassers, and add a little bit more of Red's damage-based removal, just to make sure that you don't have to get a black mana by turn 2, 3, or 4, that you can wait until maybe turn 5 or 6 and guarantee yourself some time. So that is the deck. Let's go ahead and jump to the play queue and see how our Ruby Daring Tracker werewolf deck will do. Okay, on the draw against Bay Warrior 5/10, we have our Naturalist, we have some removal, we have a Gix's Command, we have 2 playable manas. I'm okay with this one. We'll go ahead and give this a try. Kill spell from opponent incoming, or a sacrifice. Throw. Still have Tovolar at the ready. 5 mana, looks like from opponent, probably domain deck. They did flip it to night for us, kind of nice. So, out of the range of cut down. And if we could get a 4th mana, Arlinn's Pack is going to be pretty nasty here. We do use a Herd Migration, get another land card. Nothing else from opponents. So I think what we need to do here is attack in with Tovolar, draw a card. I guess all we can really do here is play out Ascendant Packleader. It would have been better if we had drawn a land, because we could have played out Arlinn, but so it goes. Arlinn is still going to be an excellent follow-up for us. Fleshgorger, not too shabby. That's all they have. Bramble Familiar, interesting. Okay. So, potential here to double spell. We'll go ahead and we'll take out the Fleshgorger for starters. We will lose a little bit of life, but at least we will have Fleshgorger off the board. And then I think it's worth it to attack with both. I'm okay with getting Bramble Familiar off the battlefield as well. So that'll be 2 cards drawn, and hopefully Okay, okay. So we do find another of that. Let's go ahead and Virtue of Persistence the Bramble Familiar too. It is ramp for what looks like a domain deck. We don't want them to get to 7 too fast. However, we do still want to be drawing lands. We want to get up to that 5th mana, so that if they do put down something big, we can Gix's Command as a follow-up and be off to the races. So, back to nighttime now. I really like the idea of putting down a Reckless Stormseeker. I do want to hold open as many different kinds of mana as possible. And this way, if we... Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead and attack in with both. I didn't want to attack with the Stormseeker or with the Slasher because I'm noticing 2 white mana and I'm worried about a Wandering Emperor, which they didn't put down. So we'll go ahead and draw some more. Not a land, also not a land. So we'll go ahead and dump an Unnatural Moonrise, I think. It is nice to have another Stormseeker at the ready. And if Atraxa comes down, Cemetery Desecrator. Interesting, okay. So, even so, a Fawnsbane Troll could still take care of that. Gix's Command can still take care of this. Ooh, what do they want to get rid of here? Uh-oh, they messed up. We will take advantage, we will put down another Storm Slasher, and we will say GG's Bay Warrior 5/10. So let's take a look at what happened here. So when Cemetery Desecrator enters the battlefield or dies, they get to exile another card from a graveyard, and when they do, choose one of the following: either remove X counters from target permanent, where X is the mana value, or target creature an opponent controls gets -X/-X, where X is the mana value. It looks like they exiled a Flesh Gorger out of their own deck, so they wanted to give something -7/-7, but it looked like they must have just misclicked and either selected the remove counters one, or they didn't actually target our Storm-Charged Slasher. Either way, we did, if it makes them feel better, have lethal as a follow-up from our own Night-bound Storm-Charged Slasher. So if this one didn't exist, this one would still come down, give itself +2, would be attacking in for 5, 2, and 4, and either way they blocked, it would still be just enough damage to take him out. On to the next one. Okay, on the play, finally, against Who You, Who Me, and Poor Mana. Who You. We can't actually do the 1-turn play, but I like the fact that we get to put down a land first in a game finally, so we're going to go ahead and keep this. Lead off with Rockvale, so that guarantees at least Packleader on turn 2. And if we can draw into a 3rd land, thank you very much, we'll have plenty of delightful things at our disposal. Cut down in our future. We definitely prefer it on Packleader rather than Stormseeker, which I think is going to be our next play. Yep. Okay, Mono Black, let's do it. So we really want to miss a Shieldred in this game. Ooh, red black? What? So in this case, they're holding up something else. I think we put down a Graveyard Trespasser. It might sound a little strange, but I think the ward in combination with the non-cut down power toughness total is going to be a little stickier here. And if they want to do something like a Go for the Throat, they'll have to discard, and then if they want to do something like a Liliana this next turn, we have a Stormseeker to follow up and take that out. Liliana, please. And Invasion of Asgol. Okay, well, not what I was expecting, but essentially the same thing. So Stormseeker hits the board. We get in for 3. That doesn't really get us anywhere. I think now we're in a position of playing for the following turn, so we'll play out Tovolar. Next turn, we will try to Stormseeker, and then maybe draw 2 cards, see what comes down. Looks like they are wealthy in removal. They're eyeing Tovolar, thinking, that wolf would look better dead, and Shieldred comes out. So, things to do here. We could Unnatural Moonrise, Tovolar becomes a 5/5. Play out a Naturalist, maybe? Depending on what happens here. I like this idea. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. This way we can get a draw, try to find another thing to do. Whoa, they trade. Okay, so second Shieldred is probably on the menu. And luckily, we get to draw 2 without Shieldred on the board. That could not have been better for us. Especially because we have a backup Tovolar. So next turn, we could actually go Stormseeker into Tovolar. And if opponent is at all... Ooh. Ooh hoo hoo. The door feels like it's open, but I'm a little wary. I don't like that they just didn't do anything that turn. There's no way at all that they don't have some sort of sacrifice card or, like, surely they have a Shieldred's Edict in hand, right? That's why they're holding all this open. So we'll go ahead, we'll attack with Lord of Ulvenwald and the Stormcharge Slasher. And with the extra mana from the Lord of Ulvenwald, we will put down a Tovolar. Heck yeah. We'll see what they want to do here. They should be flipping it right now. Infernally Grasp the Slasher instead. Uh-oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. So we are presenting a very sticky threat. This is about as good as it could have gotten. We can double spell again, go Stormseeker into Packleader. We could also go Packleader into Unnatural Moonrise to grow the Packleader. Aggressive Sabotage instead, so I'm kind of okay with that, to be honest. 4, 5, 6, 1 mana short of just casting a Virtue of Persistence. So we'll go ahead, we will unnaturally rise the moon. We'll attack in for 9, put them down to 3, draw 2 cards, 3 cards. Ooh, come on, give us something good. Another land, another land. Okay, well, we have some removal, we have Virtue of Persistence at the ready, we have some Tramply boys. Let's see what opponent wants to throw down. Sorin the Mirthless, it's not gonna do it. Virtue of Persistence for the win. Okay, let's see what happens. We could even... Why not? Let's go ahead and play down Arlinn the Back's Hope. We will make her an indestructible Tramply 5/5. We will play out our Virtue of Persistence. We will take out this vampire. We will attack in for a huge amount of wolfy deliciousness. And we will say, Mono Black, good game. GG's who you. Okay, on the draw against Jarrettson, we have a Ascendant Packleader, but we don't have the mana to cast it on turn 1. We can follow that up with a turn 3 and 4 play, but we are on the draw and we are technically the aggro deck, so I think we have to try to get a turn 1 and 2 play down. This is much, much better. So I like the creatures we have, I like the rollout that we're going to have. I think Fawn's Bane Troll is going to be easier to cast than a turn 3 Trespasser. I'm actually going to go ahead and drop the Trespasser. And this way we can go Packleader into Kessig Naturalist. If we draw a Swamp, then we can attack with Naturalist, play out the Fawn's Bane, and go from there. But we'll see what we're up against. That might change our plan. So it looks like Overgrown Farmland, we might be playing a token deck, or a toxic deck, or an enchantment deck. We'll see when we get there. Okay, looks like it is going to be a toxic deck, and we did draw into our Deathcap Blade Fairy. With that, go ahead and play down a Naturalist, and we will hold back. So turn 3, we have to get our Troll down, and then turn 4, we are going to be fighting. probably the Duelist if we can, and then also using Unnatural Moonrise to flip our Naturalist. And that should guarantee that it remains nighttime and we can get the maximum value out of our Naturalist. But in the meanwhile, opponent is just going to be layering on auras and protective spells. So we'll see if we have an opening when we want to have an opening. So Sentry comes down, takes our Naturalist, so now we're going to have to fight the Sentry to get back our Naturalist. This definitely throws off our plan. Opponent on the play is taking full advantage. So turn 3 Tovolar, not too bad. We can still trade the Duelist if they want to tap out. But I am much more inclined to keep Tovolar around so that we can start drawing some cards off of our wolves. Slaughtersinger, pretty scary play from opponent. It looks like... Huh. So both of these creatures are going to get +1/+1. That's 3 toxic coming through. They keep taking priority, which makes me think they have a protection spell. So I'm just going to let this happen. I think our best path forward is going to be our troll, and aiming for some removal. We can always chump with our pack leader if we need to, and I think... Oh, they actually had another mana too. Depending on what they play out here, is nothing. I'm gonna go ahead and attack in with Tovolar. See if we can draw a card. Okay, seems like opponent's gonna let us. Very nice. Second troll is pretty nice. So we'll go ahead, we'll play that down. We'll grow pack leader, which is very important. So we have a 5/5. It's going to be able to... Oh, I take that back. Valorous Stance. This is a really good removal spell for a deck that has very low power and toughness, such as the Toxic deck, because it takes away all your threats. Really clean answer for opponent, and we're going to have to block out with our pack leader here, although seems like something else is going to happen. I'm going to block the Slaughtersinger because it has the most toxic. They're going to buff up their Duelist to... They can make it a 4/4 and we're dead, and I have a feeling they probably can. Not sure why they're trying to save their Slaughtersinger. They had lethal there. So, bit of a misplay from opponent. But it seems like they have another Tyvar stand at the ready. Ruby, not a terrible draw, but because we went for Fawn's Bane last turn, we're in a slightly worse position. It looks like actually they don't have anything else this turn, so we might be able to get by here. So depending on what comes through, they can buff up Duelist, but they can only, with the board state as it is, they can only deal 1 toxic. Which I'm pretty excited about. If we can keep it like this, then we'll be able to start removing some things next turn, and I'm very pleased with that. So we'll probably have to sacrifice Tovolar here. I like the idea of taking out the Slaughtersinger, which we have to do because it has 2 toxic anyways. They have a way to give something toxic. That could be bad, but it doesn't look like they do. So we remove 2 threats. We'll be able to fight their... Oh, what a rollout from opponent. Good gravy. Alright, so... what do we do here? What do we do? So, Rot Priest is a little unfortunate. What do we want to fight? So we could probably fight Rot Priest. We could play out Ruby. We'll hold Ruby back to block Annex Sentry. We'll have to trade off our Troll for the Bloated Contaminator. But we are alive in that scenario. So I'm not opposed to this. Play out our Ruby. And that's where we're going to have to leave it. Hopefully opponent keeps drawing lands. If they draw anything else, any pump spells, anything on the Bloated Contaminator is bad. Another Bloated Contaminator is terrible. We'll see if they want to trade. Because as it is, they have lethal next turn. Ooh. Ooh, okay, so we don't have... This is an interesting predicament. So our only out here is to Unnatural Moonrise on the Fonsbane Troll. Put 2 counters on Ruby if we draw into a black mana, and then we'll have that actually won't even be enough. So this is the only possible out we have. So we'll go ahead, we will give Fonsbane Troll a little extra something. We'll see if they want to trade for the Contaminator. I doubt they will. I don't think they're going to expect us to have a Gix's Command. If they trade here and we draw into a black mana, that's amazing. Because we can clear their entire board. Oh, it is not. Okay, well, GG's, Jarrettson. That was a very close game. Came down to the wire, the big difference being we did not have our double black. We'll go ahead and let them on through. We'll move on to the next one. Okay, on the draw again against Mr. Walrazonki. Interesting name. No turn 1 play. I'll have to wait until turn 2 to play Naturalist. Once again, we're on the draw. This is a little bit slow, but I'm not sure we're going to have a better variety of things to play. So we'll keep. Looks like probably another Domain deck, if I had to guess. Domain, Mono Black, and Enchantments are the hot decks right now, for sure. So turn 3, we can play out our Tovolar, and then we'll have to really start thinking about inline binding on the Kessig Naturalist. I'm surprised they didn't just hold on to that a little bit. I think we'll double spell here, get out a Ruby into our pack leader, and at least get in 1 piece of damage, and also ramp for next turn. We'll see what colors of mana they have out. They only just now have white, so they can't play anything else. This is kind of interesting, actually. So I think we will... If we play out a Tovolar here... we can draw off Pack Leader, or we can just play an Arlinn and create some wolves. And I think that is what I like more. So we'll play Arlinn, we'll buff up Pack Leader. Opponent has something over here going on. We'll go ahead and let Arlinn become... Oh, right, because it's night. Where did it become? Oh, because they did Leyline on mine. Yes, okay. So we'll go ahead, we'll let Arlinn become a 5/5, Trample Indestructible, Hasty Wolf. We'll attack in with 9 power and toughness. Make that 11. Opponent gains 3 life, gets another land. Not too shabby if I don't say so myself. So probably going to get red instead. Interesting, okay. Arlinn does not remain a creature, which is nice. So even if they board wipe here, we're not in too much trouble. But once again, they don't double spell. Did we really just get through Domain? I think we did. On the back of a Ruby into Arlinn. Okay, we'll take it. On to the next one. GG's, Mr. Walrezonki. Okay, and with that, we're going to call it a day for our Forest of Terrors Ruby and her Wolves deck. So, a few thoughts before we close out the day. I think that Ruby herself is wonderful. I think that all of the other cards that we've built in around are really good. We didn't run into any mono red, which I think we have a really pretty good matchup against, especially with all the incidental life gain and Graveyard Trespasser, Virtue of Persistence, Kessig Command. So that's a little unfortunate. However, for the mid-range decks that we did hit, I think I ran about 50-50 with mono black, which is exceptional. I do think that in those matchups, Fawn's Bane Troll is a little worse. It feels bad putting down a 4-mana thing, trying to sacrifice an aura just to have it, just to have it destroyed by a Go for the Throat. I think instead, to clear up some of those board stalls and to gain a little bit of life back, an extra Gix's Command is probably better. So I think if we take out the trolls, we throw in a Gix's Command, maybe have a 3 or even 4 of Arlinn, I think all of a sudden we start getting quite a bit more competitive in those kinds of games. You could also do something like, if there isn't a lot of mono red in the queue, take out a Virtue of Persistence. I think that having some sort of fight spell instead could be better. Having something like a Tail Swipe for removal whenever you're facing maybe a, I don't know, 2 power and toughness kind of card, just to give it a little bit of oomph and get past some of those early creatures, especially in the Atraxa decks. Now that I'm thinking about it, little 2/2 raccoons, if we had a couple tail swipes, we would have been able to get ahead by just maybe 1 or 2 turns, and that could be all the difference. So I'd be tempted to maybe put in some tail swipes. We have a lot of really strong cards. We have a pretty nice 1-2-3 rollout, so by turn 4 we're either looking to double spell or play a bomb. And I think Tail Swipe is probably a really nice double spell. We could also do something a little bit bigger, something like Curse the Werefox. Ruthless Predation is actually a pretty nice card. It does give our creatures the ability to just get above some of those other 1, 2, and 3 drops. And especially if we're maybe in even kind of a mirror matchup-y, if we have a Graveyard Trespasser down and the opponent has a Graveyard Trespasser down, Tail Swipe does the job, but maybe something like a Kessig Naturalist would be able to go to a 3-4 and then, you know, take something like this out. So I'm kind of talking myself into it as we're going along. So maybe one of these and one of these. They both have kind of different case studies, different use cases rather. But I think this is probably where I would leave it. In the 1 slot, we have our pack leaders and a tail swipe. In the 2 slot, we have our naturalists, Ruby herself, 1 Ruthless Predation, and some Unnatural Moonrises. In the 3 drop, we have our Graveyard Trespassers, our Stormseekers, and Tovolar, the Dire Overlord. In the 4 drop, we have our Arlinn, the Pack's Hope, which we do hope will flip Nightbound to the Moon's Fury and become a very scary, tramply indestructible, hasty 5/5 werewolf. What big teeth she has indeed. In the 5 drop, we have 3 copies of Gix's Command as a way to clear the board of some of those Shieldrids, of some of those big Phyrexian Flesh Gorgers, of the Atalis, of the Atraxas. This card is going to be a huge value boost. It's going to let you stall until you have enough to push through, take out an Atraxa, add some tramply damage, add some lifelink, make your move. And then Tovolar's Huntmaster, which is still a great way to come back from a board wipe, come back from an unfortunate 2-for-1, from maybe not an ideal exchange of creatures the turn prior. Really, really strong. And then as far as the mana base, again, because now we've taken out some of our 2-mana black spells, you could even go a little heavier on the basics in the mountains and the forests, take out a couple of the black dual lands, just to make it a little bit easier on your crafting. But this is where we're going to cut it. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay and the deck building as much as I enjoyed playing it for you. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all the things, as it really helps my small channel grow. And I will see you in the next one.